Hello, my name is Dawson Church. I'm the author of several best-selling science books, including The Genie in Your Genes and Mind to Matter. I've also been involved in over 100 scientific studies. I also teach workshops, live workshops, online workshops, and I had an experience that really rocked my world, which I'd like to share with you. And it was when I was teaching an online workshop in China in December of 2019. Now, every Friday evening at 6 p.m. my time in California, 10 a.m. in China, I would get on Zoom and teach my students there. But I became aware toward the end of December 2019, early January 2020, that something was really wrong in China. And in some exchanges with my host, I first heard about the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, that was wreaking havoc on the economy and the lifestyle of people there. I began to wonder how I could help because I knew that all the fear they were experiencing was not helping them at all. So I made a meditation, and I explained in the meditation the basic relationship of immunity to stress. That meditation was translated into Chinese, also French, German, Spanish, other languages, and it wound up reaching over 100,000 people. I also began to look at the research. And essentially, what the researchers looking for a vaccine were doing was they were looking at earlier research and seeing if they could extrapolate those methods, build upon that research to develop things like a vaccine. Now, those researchers were reading papers by early researchers who had been looking for vaccines for the SARS epidemic in 2002 and the MERS epidemic in 2012. These were really virulent strains of these coronaviruses, and the death rate from SARS was around 10%. The death rate from MERS was around 36%. And one particular paper really caught my eye. It was published by a research team at the New York Blood Center that really explained clearly exactly how vaccines are developed and also how the coronavirus is spread from person to person, how they infect cells, and also our immune system and the immune molecules that help us protect us, our bodies, against these substances. This is one of the images from that paper. And as you can see here, they were looking for a MERS vaccine, trying it in various types of animals over here. And then these are some of the pathways in our bodies that are protective against the effects of a virus. So here the MERS virus is coming into the body. It's binding with these DPP4 receptors on the cell membrane of the cell. As you can see, this particular coronavirus has these protrusions here that are adhering to those DPP4 receptors. That's how the virus gets into the cell, infects the cell, and does its work. But what really struck me about this was these three letters over here and these four letters over here. This molecule is immunoglobulin A. We have three different types of immunoglobulins in our bodies: immunoglobulin A, immunoglobulin G, immunoglobulin M, and then salivary immunoglobulin A is a special kind of immunoglobulin molecule, and I'm going to share with you exactly how you can use this potent information for your own health and your own well-being. Now, the reason that I sat bolt upright in my lab and looked at that paper and looked at that diagram with such interest was I had done some research several years ago looking at that very same molecule, salivary immunoglobulin A. I had done the research at Esalen Institute in California. I teach retreats there often, and I happened that year to teach 2 retreats there, and I was using a lab and using saliva swabs to actually measure the levels of immunoglobulins of people at those 2 workshops. We were actually interested primarily in psychological symptoms like anxiety, depression, phobias, and PTSD. But we also looked at physiological markers like resting heart rate, like heart rate variability, like blood pressure, and also these two really important biological markers, cortisol and immunoglobulins. So the structure of the data gathering was that I and two colleagues, along with some research assistants, collected all of these samples on the first day. We collected them again on the last day. We then sent them off to a lab who compared them. Between the first and last day of those two workshops, one was 2 days long, one was a week long. We meditated, we used EFT, emotional freedom techniques, acupressure, tapping, and we used these advanced techniques to reduce the stress of participants. It didn't hurt that they were in a beautiful setting. We had these sessions out on the deck with the ocean in the background, and we really got deep into personal transformation and personal growth in the course of those workshops. Now, cortisol is your main stress hormone. And I've done many previous studies looking at levels of cortisol and also training people in methods like meditation, like EFT, that reduce cortisol. That prior research shows that cortisol drops dramatically when people use these two potent stress-busting methods. Immunoglobulin is a Y-shaped molecule that looks something like this. It has a tail, and then each end of the Y is tipped with a particular configuration of molecules that binds to things called antigens, which include the spikes on the ends of coronaviruses. And I'll show you exactly how immunoglobulins work to neutralize viruses and other kinds of pathogens that can compromise your health. Now, these two molecules function in an inverse relationship. When you're stressed, your body redeploys all your biological resources to help you escape from danger. And one of the features of that stress response is suppression of the immune system. So usually when your cortisol goes up, your immunoglobulins and other immune markers go down. But when you relax, the opposite process takes place. Suddenly, your cortisol is dropping, and when that occurs, all kinds of biological resources become available for your well-being, including boosting your immunity and producing more immunoglobulins. And here's the structure of a coronavirus. It has an outer membrane composed of fat or lipid molecules. Through that membrane protrude what they call spikes of these glycoproteins. Inside, there's a single strand of RNA. So these spikes over here are really important, and we'll go ahead and show exactly what they do when a coronavirus infects a cell. In these three diagrams, A, B, and C, you can see in detail how the process occurs. That spike protein docks with another molecule on the surface of the cell membrane. And you can see here that that spike glycoprotein is exactly the right shape to dock with this ACE2 receptor on the surface of the cell. At that point, once the spike protein is activated and docked, then the coronavirus enters the cell where it replicates and does damage and infects the host cell. And here's how immunoglobulins work to neutralize the threats of coronaviruses. So here is a coronavirus entering the body, and here are those Y-shaped molecules, immunoglobulins, circulating around either in your bloodstream, plasma, or in the mucous membranes of your nose, mouth, sinuses, and gut. And so here you have immunoglobulins, and they're near a coronavirus. Now you remember that at the ends of those Ys, there were those special antigen binding molecules. And what they do when they encounter a coronavirus is they bind to those glycoprotein spikes. You see over here how each of the ends of the Y is bound to a certain spike. And you also remember from earlier that the shape of the spike was critical to bonding with the cell wall, the membrane, and then entering the cell. So once these spikes start to get neutralized by the immunoglobulins, now they are the wrong shape to bond with the cell wall and penetrate the host cell. And now in this final diagram, you see how all of the glycoprotein spikes of the coronavirus have been bound by immunoglobulin Y ends, and now that virus can no longer dock with those receptors on the surface of the host cell. It's been neutralized. Not only that, but these tails of the immunoglobulins have another function. They signal other cells in your immune system, like phagocytes, and those phagocytes then go and gobble up the immunoglobulin and the coronavirus. These little molecules over here, these spikes, these ends to the immunoglobulins are like little flags saying, yoo-hoo, it's dinner time to those cells in our immune system, and they then go and digest this tasty feast of the virus and eliminate it from our system. So at Esalen, both for that 2-day workshop and for that week-long workshop, we were actively using these stress reduction techniques. For the 2-day, we were meditating a lot. We were also using EFT acupressure tapping. For the week-long, we were tapping on especially traumatic memories and events most of the week, and also meditating every morning. So this powerful combination of these techniques to actually reduce people's stress, reduce their cortisol, and then see what changes that this would produce in their bodies. We hooked them up to heart rate variability monitors. We took their blood pressure, measured their resting heart rate, and also measured their levels of cortisol and immunoglobulin, as well as a host of psychological markers. I also worked with a wonderful couple, husband and wife team, Gary Grosbeck and Donna Bach. They've been doing various types of research, especially on brainwaves, for decades. And so with them and other research assistants, we collected all this data and made sure participants had a really relaxing and low stress time. It was so deeply wonderful and touched my heart to see people just drop layer after layer of stress. Several of them said they've never been able to meditate this deeply before, and suddenly they found themselves being able to do it. Some people said that they had profound shifts in who they saw themselves being, in their relationship to their higher power, to their sense of guidance, that at last they felt as though their minds were quiet enough to where they really could feel and inhabit and hear messages from their guidance. It was such a powerful experience for me personally to watch people at these retreats drop layer after layer after layer of those stressors. Here are what a few of them had to say. David Street said, "This special experience brought me to tears. I am so thankful. This is a practice I can take home and do every day. What a great way to ease into a profound meditative state." And often we would see people meditating and just the tears just pouring down their cheeks as they reach these states of elevated emotion. Marge Ellen said, "I feel deeply relaxed when I do this. I'm excited about creating new patterns of behavior in my brain, and I feel a comforting sense of guidance." Ron Leskowitz, a doctor, said, "I dropped into a deeper state than I've ever experienced before. It was so comforting to have my hyperactive nervous system ratchet down. I felt the presence of an invisible counselor who's here to support me." Harry Lentz, a nurse, said, "This was a deeper way of relaxation and tuning into myself than anything else I've tried. I received vivid pictures from my subconscious. I was able to actualize my thoughts and consciousness in the form of clear guidance." Now, one of the things about research is your results don't come instantly. There's no instant gratification in research. You pack your samples in a freezer kit, they get shipped off to a lab. It takes many weeks for the lab to analyze them, the data to get analyzed, and so months and months and months go by. And eventually you have the data. You then will put it in a paper, submit that to a medical journal, and then you'll wait for the results of peer review and eventually get it published. So we went through that whole long cycle with Gary Grossbeck, Donna Bach, and I, the other members of the research team, and finally, our research was published in a medical journal. If you'd like to look it up, just go to the US government's database called pubmed.gov, type my name in there, Dawson Church, and you'll find many studies I've done will show up. The two you want to reference are, first of all, the one on clinical EFT. Clinical EFT improves multiple physiological markers of health, published in the Journal of Evidence-Based Integrative Medicine. And that was the week-long study. And the second one you want to look at is the study of eco meditation. That was the weekend study, the interrelated physiological and psychological effects of eco meditation, with Gary Grossbeck as the lead author and with me as one of the authors, as well as several other talented research colleagues. What we found was remarkable. We found that in just that brief 2-day workshop, that the psychological states of people at the workshop changed dramatically. Their anxiety went down by 26%. Their depression symptoms went down by 32%. Their PTSD symptoms decreased by 18%, and their pain went down by 43%. And of course, when all that bad stuff goes down, the good stuff goes up, so their happiness increased by 29%. When those types of positive changes happen in the mind and the emotions, then good things happen in the body. And so we found that their cortisol went down by 29%. And that's a massive drop for just 2 days. The resting heart rate went down by 5%, and their immunoglobulins went up by 27%. And remember, as I mentioned earlier, that these have an inverse relationship. As you use stress reduction techniques and your cortisol levels go down, then your immune markers tend to go up. So as you reduce your stress, then you have heightened immunity. But as you get all stressed and anxious and upset, like those people in China were doing when I was making that meditation for them to help them calm themselves down, then that actually suppresses your immune system, and then you have a harder time fending off bacteria, viruses, and other pathogens. In the week-long workshop of people doing those advanced techniques for a whole week, the results were even more dramatic. On average, their cortisol dropped by 37%. When that happened, their immunoglobulins went up by 113%. That's more than a doubling of that immune response, more than doubling of those Y-shaped molecules which attach to viruses and help neutralize them and keep your body free from pathogens and toxins. So I was really inspired by this, and after I read that paper by that MERS researcher, I thought, what can I do to get these potent stress reduction techniques to people? And so I came up with an outrageous idea as I talked to my wife and my team and friends and colleagues, and we had this really bright idea. We said, imagine if we could replicate the Esalen workshop. But we know that people can't travel to Esalen. We know that many people need to do it in their homes. We know that there are all kinds of obstacles to going there. And so why don't we design a workshop in which we do exactly the same techniques we used at Esalen with those same faculty members, Gary Grossbeck and Donna Bach and me. And why don't we then recreate the Esalen weekend, that 48 hours that raised people's immunoglobulins dramatically, reduce their cortisol, and do it as a virtual online experience. So that is in fact what we have done. We have very carefully looked at all the components of that Esalen weekend, and we have built them into a 48-hour experience. What you'll do in this experience is you'll do what the Esalen people did. You'll set aside 2 days, 48 hours, to really nurture you. You'll turn off your cell phone, you'll turn off your alerts, you won't check your email, and you'll really give yourself that sense of inner peace as you go through these advanced meditations, as you reach these elevated emotional states, as you use EFT acupressure tapping to release your stress levels and give your body a chance to relax and recover. So we will step by step over the course of 2 days take you through each of the components those people at Esalen did and have you see the kinds of profound shifts that happen in your psyche and your body when you truly and deeply relax. So I'd like to invite you to join me for that 48-hour Esalen retreat and give your body the rest and the break it deserves. Feel those elevated emotions. Feel yourself getting one with your higher power. Feel your heart singing. Feel gratitude and compassion flooding through your body and mind. And for more information on the retreat, go to the website energyheals.today. Not .com or .org or .net, .today. Energyheals.today for all the details about the event. So I invite you to take care of yourself, to boost your immune system, to really experience the stress reduction and cortisol reduction effects of these advanced techniques. They can make a huge difference in your life, as they have in the lives of so many. Now, before we go today, I want to give you a few bits of information about the retreat and also give you some cautions and make sure that you know all the facts here. Now, a few things we recommend. I recommend you do this in a contiguous 48 hours and not break it up over several sessions, although if you have to, for family reasons or to take care of yourself, by all means do that. You will have a recording. You'll have access to that recording for a year after you purchase the retreat. Also, you'll get detailed instructions on preparation, because preparation for a retreat is really crucial to setting your mind in a place where you can get the most possible benefit from these techniques at the retreat. We also have made this retreat as affordable as possible. So the actual retreat at Esalen was really expensive. You'll be having that similar experience for much less. There are also payment plans available. Now, one thing to be aware of as far as immunity goes, immunity isn't an on or off switch. Immunity is more like a dimmer switch that goes from light to dark. You can dial up your immunity, you can dial it down. I mentioned several times that as stress goes up, immunity drops. As stress goes down, as we find happens in these workshops, that immunity tends to rise. But there's no such thing as being immune. For example, my wife was at a yoga class a while back, and there was a guy right next to her, and he was coughing and spluttering, and the yoga class was packed. There were all these people in the class. She had nowhere else to go. And she came back and said, Dawson, I just got such an avalanche of germs during that class, I might get sick. And she did. That's called allostatic load. You don't want to have your allostatic load be high, you want it to be low. So there's no such thing as being immune from anything. If that load gets high enough, if your immune system's compromised, then you're more likely to get sick. So don't think that taking this workshop makes you immune from any virus, any particular virus, from the coronavirus. It doesn't. It simply boosts your overall level of immunity. Also, this is not a substitute for medical care or psychological care. I use meditation every day. I literally wake up and the first thing I do every morning is I meditate. I use EFT acupressure tapping regularly throughout the week. But does that mean I don't need to go get a flu shot when it's time to prepare for the winter? Of course not. Get my flu shot, get my vaccinations. I have great medical care as well. This workshop and no personal growth workshop is a substitute for really good medical care. You want to have great medical care, great psychological care, and great personal growth experiences like this workshop. You then get the best of all possible worlds for supporting your health and well-being. Also, make sure you're following all public health guidelines. Wash your hands. In one study of school teachers, they found that teachers who washed their hands regularly, even though they were exposed to a lot of viruses and bacteria in the classroom when kids were sick in the winter, those who washed their hands frequently had much lower levels of infection than those that didn't. So follow all the public health guidelines about social distancing, about washing your hands, about avoiding sick people. It's really important not to think that taking a workshop or using a method like meditation is going to be protective. It is useful, but you have to still follow those really sensible public health guidelines. So as you can tell, I am excited, I am passionate about this workshop and sharing it with you. Please do join me for this immunity workshop. It's at energyheals.today. Energyheals.today. I'd love to see you there. I'd love to see you put aside that retreat time, nurture and love yourself in this way, and feel much, much better. Thank you so much.